on May 17th, 2015, Cameron left home. He went to go play basketball at the Pearland Recreation Center. It was a beautiful Sunday afternoon. The NBA finals were on, and I was surprised that he went because I thought, don't you want to watch the game? But he said he'd be back in an hour. He hugged me and said he'd be back. So I was like, okay. I thought he would make it back and we could watch the game together. But fortunately, Cameron never made it back home. I received a call from the Pearland Recreation Center that something had happened, and they wouldn't really share a lot about what it was. They just told me that I needed to come down right away. So I'm thinking maybe he fell, maybe he got cut or hurt, but never in a million years would I have imagined what I saw when I drove up to the building. There were police cars, ambulance. Of course, my heart was like, oh my God, is this for my child? When I walked into the building, Cameron was in the middle of the basketball court. He had suffered sudden cardiac arrest right after playing a basketball game with his friends. When I got there, he was in the middle of the basketball court still. That's where he fell out. I later found out right after the game, and they tried to get him up. And they were like, come on, man, get up. He suffered sudden cardiac arrest in the middle of the basketball court. They had just finished playing the game. So they thought he was just resting. And they tried to get him up, but he was unresponsive.
And so then they called for someone to do CPR?
So
did
when
the
I
kids there start the CPR, or do you know who?
You know, I never wanted to really find out what happened. His friends who was with him later shared with me that he laid on the ground and they tried to get him up. And I don't know, I'm thinking maybe like 5 minutes passed or something, or maybe 3 to 5 minutes had passed from what they said. And then they went and got somebody. When I walked into the building, they were doing, the EMS was there, and they were doing CPR and AED. I couldn't believe what I saw. I just immediately went into the corner and started praying because, of course, I'm thinking this is not happening. He just left home. He's a healthy 6'4", 215-pound, 20-year-old who is in perfect health, never sick, never had to go to the doctors except mostly for his physical, which he had every year. So I never would have imagined that this could have happened suddenly and without warning, that he could die from something that we knew nothing about.
Do you feel like the medical profession or other people that have this knowledge could do more to help families? You know, with testing regularly, routinely, testing hearts, because we think about it, they get their eyes checked, they get their ears checked, you know, they get blood work, but we're not checking their hearts. Because listening with a stethoscope is not going to detect all of the heart defects that could lead to sudden cardiac arrest.
And that starts with the EKG. And yes, I feel like, why isn't that something that routinely happens as part of a physical, especially a sports physical for athletes, especially since we know this is not rare and it happens often.
Before the incident at Pearland Recreational Center, tell me what you knew about sudden cardiac arrest. Did you think this was ever something that could have happened to you or your child, your family?
Not in a million years. You know, you hear about the athletes that, you know, this person collapsed on the basketball court or this person collapsed on the football field. But I never really, quite honestly, paid much attention to it. Of course, it was unfortunate. My heart went out to the family and the friends, but never really thought it was something that could happen to Cameron.
What's the shocking part about it now for you?
that it can happen suddenly and without warning. And the first symptom can be death, which, you know, you don't think somebody 20 years old, perfect health, is just going to collapse and their heart is just going to stop beating unless there was some type of problem or warning sign or something. But for the first symptom to be death, you know, that's very shocking and just nothing that I was aware of could happen.
Do you ever play the what ifs in your head? Like you said that he usually would have watched a basketball game with you. Do you like play back those moments in your head, like as a parent? I know for me, there's so many things that I'm like, well, what if I would have done this different? What if I would have done that different?
Oh, absolutely. In the beginning, of course, your mind is racing. It can't stop. You have all these thoughts in your head. In the beginning, I just couldn't understand why. Why, God? Why did Cameron have to die? And I never really had any answers. So all I had was questions. I focused on his death and not his life because I kept trying to understand and lean to my own understanding. And I really just had to trust God.
I'd say that faith has been really important for me. I wouldn't have gotten through this if it wasn't for my belief and my faith in God. It's very, interesting, even, yourself a devout Christian, myself a Muslim, and that our religions, when it comes to this, have so many similarities and the strength that it gives us to get through this. And I hesitate to use the word strength because I don't feel strong, but I know that God is strong and He is my strength. He is what gets me through this. And the times that I feel alone and abandoned, I know that He is with me. So I'm never really truly alone. Right. And when you said that we ask why God, for me, that understanding, like you said, never came. And what I did hear was why anyone. I can't say why my child, why anyone's child. Why does this happen? And God has a purpose for it. I don't understand it. I don't think I ever will understand it until, my time comes. But what I do understand is that He has helped me to see that our reward, you sound like you did so many good deeds even before Cameron passed. Cameron sounded like he was doing so much good for others. Damani was doing so much good for others. And I know that I was doing good for others as well. And it's like, we don't deserve this, but no one deserves this.
Right.
But our reward, a lot of times we feel like when we do good, we're supposed to be rewarded, in this life. Our reward will come, just not in this lifetime necessarily, because I don't ever really see my life being what it was. But I have no choice. People say you're strong, but I don't have a choice. So I don't necessarily feel strong, but I am being obedient, and I am surrendering to God's will. So I have no choice but to fulfill this new purpose that He has given us, to where now our children's purpose becomes a part of our purpose. And I know that I always feel like on those days where it's too hard to keep going, that I have to get up and I have to do something, because Damani's purpose is intertwined with my purpose. He has given me more fuel and more fire to accomplish and do and help others in a way that, even though I was helping others before, in a way that far surpasses anything that we were doing before. We still have our bad days. I don't know if you still do, but I still have days where it's heavier. It's weighing heavier on me than others. So I know there are a lot of moms who might be experiencing loss and experiencing the loss of hope, because we don't just lose our children, we lose hope, we lose our purpose. For a moment of time, I lost my purpose. I didn't understand it, but it's like going into a cocoon or going into hibernation. You have to withdraw and retreat within yourself so that you can hear the word of God, because sometimes we're out here and we have so much other things going on in our lives that we lose our connection with God. Not so much our connection, but our ability to hear when He's speaking to us. You know how they say speak when spoken to? A lot of times we speak, but we're not necessarily hearing what God is saying to us. We need to hear what He's saying and let Him give us the words to share with others. Give us the deeds to share with others.
If my journey can bring encouragement or inspiration to anyone else who is going through what I've experienced, then I count it all joy, and I count it all just purpose, and my life has meaning. Cameron's not here, but he is here in my heart. Physically, I can't see him, but he is with me every day now. And I really don't feel the absence like I used to feel missing him. Physically, yes, but spiritually, I feel so much closer to him now and so much closer to God. So
We always feel like we know God, but now I know that I know God.
oh,
I know God
well,
now, and I feel definitely closer to God. He has drawn me near to Him, because there's no one that can comfort me except the one who created me. And I
right.
cry in His chest. I
Mm,
cry in His bosom every single day, and He comforts me. And those tears are cleansing. And I love Him. Sometimes I think that we love this world and love the things in it and the people in it so much. But we should never love anyone or anything more than we love God.
right. We have provided 4 heart screenings, and other organizations. You hear a lot more about heart screenings now, free heart screenings. So take the time, take the hour, take the 2 hours, take the 10 hours if you have to drive wherever you need to drive to, especially if your son is playing sports. It's the number one killer of student athletes, unfortunately. And you hear about it all the time, but you just never ever think it's going to happen to you. Just like I never thought it would happen to us.
How have you made it through, like losing a child suddenly who was not sick? There was no warning. How have you gotten through the grief?
Whew. Well, my journey has been long. My heart was heavy. It was broken. It was, it was painful. I now know what they mean by a broken heart. My heart was truly broken. I was very involved in my church, and so was Cameron. At first, church was very comforting, but then his friends started coming home from college. Sermons just weren't giving me the answer that I needed. So I stopped going to church, and I actually stopped going to church for a year and a half. I would sit at home crying all the time. I went on vacations. I'm not the kind of person who shares my grief, really, maybe with my sister or my husband, but my friends didn't really know what I was going through. I would go on vacation, and like they say, fake it until you make it. So, I would pretend, but as soon as I got home, I'm crying. I don't know how I am going to survive. I don't know how I'm going to ever have peace or happiness again because my child is not here. My life, my only child. I never could imagine that I could have peace when he died. I just really, quite frankly, I just really stopped living for a while and just kept things really to myself. But God is good, and my journey and my faith is what got me through. I was delivered in an instant out of darkness, out of pain, a miracle. God delivered me on that day at the 12 o'clock service. My heart was no longer heavy. I had this joy and this peace that surpassed all understanding. And from that day on, I knew that God had a purpose for me, that I was still here, that I could focus on Cameron's life and not his death, that Cameron would always be in my heart. We have had 4 heart screenings to date. we have found 26 with heart abnormalities that they knew nothing about. One mother called me actually the other day, and she told me that what we're doing is making a difference, that her son was found to have long QT, and he's now on medication, and he can't play football. He was 12 years old, and he wasn't able to continue playing football, but he had a condition that he knew nothing about. And my heart is so grateful that we were able to give him that information. That is my journey and my walk, to do all that I can so that other parents don't have to suffer what we went through.
Thank you for joining us with Healing Hearts. Thank you, Sherri. Thank you,
Thank
the
you.
Campbell Project. And until next time.